Hello there, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for joining us. You're watching interview number 1 of 2, where we are interviewing each other.
That's going to be an interesting thing.
Two co-hosts, two best friends sitting down to have a conversation that's probably way more personal than you ever asked for.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought this is something we've been thinking about doing for a while now. Because I think the premise for me is almost fascinating, right? We know each other almost too well for this. But it's also one of those things where it's a good way to introduce ourselves and talk to the community about who we are and what we believe in, and have someone that really knows the other person dig into them a little bit. And it's also another one of these videos that we don't edit.
Yeah.
So it makes my job significantly easier. We just got finished filming Jan's interview of me, which I had planned to do the other way originally. This will be the first one that's posted. Jan's interview of me will be going live tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
The reason being is I feel weird putting up a video where my co-host is interviewing me before I have one where I'm having a chance to have a conversation with him.
And why is that, Jesse?
This is not your interview, Jen. So, if you're joining us, I hope you enjoy this. I hope you enjoy getting a chance to do a deep dive into Jen. I don't think 100,000 people are going to watch this, but I do think a couple hundred are going to enjoy it. And this, like I said, we've been wanting to do this for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And this week felt like a good week to do it. The reason being is we've been together for 5 or 6 days now.
Yeah.
Producing as much content as we can.
Yes.
If you don't know, I live in Kentucky. Jan lives 8 to 10 hours away in Washington, D.C. That wasn't the case a while ago. I recently had to move home because, loss of work and income and everything like that has facilitated or mandated that for me to do Quackalope or continue doing Quackalope, I had to move back here to my family. So once a month, once every half a month or so, we sprint up. I drive up, pick you up, drive back down. On the way, we record a 3 to 4 hour road trip podcast for our Patreon where we do a full Q&A. We've produced 3 of those now. Getting to know each other.
Interacting a lot.
Too well.
More than a lot of people actually get to interact with.
We've been around way too much.
For long periods of time.
And this week is one of those. This week is like a crescendo of production. And so tomorrow I will do it's 40 hours total of driving. Tomorrow I'll do the next 20 hours to go drop you back off and bring you back down to Kentucky. So this is one of the last videos we're recording before this week is kind of over. And we also have now crossed 15,000 subscribers, like a momentous number that neither of us thought. Like, we were talking about maybe being 10K by the end of the year. So that's cool. But it also means a lot of you didn't grow up with us, right?
Yep.
Like, it's not the first 1,000 people that, and granted, a lot of those people are the ones that will be watching this, but it is an element of how do we, when we're together, produce content that isn't just gameplay? Like, I produce gameplay with a lot of different people, right? But you're, like, the co-host of the show. You're the producer of the podcast. You're, subtle podcast plug, you're a core part of this. So how do we create content that allows that to exist, right? And introduces and reminds people that, like, even though you pop into gameplays, like, you're the thing. And eventually we will move together on the same plot of land where I have a farmhouse, a workshop, and a pond with a petal of ducks.
Maybe I'm in the next house, like right next door. We'll talk about it.
We'll see what happens.
We'll get there.
We'll see what happens. So if you're enjoying this, if you watch this, I hope this gives you a little bit of insight, possibly too much insight into who we are, who Jan is, where he fits in or where his headspace is when it comes to this channel and what we're doing. And if you appreciate the content we do here, swing over to the Patreon. We have extra content there that explores both of us. We have the full road trip podcast, but we also have, I think, 50 other pieces of unique content that we've produced over the last few months there and growing. So if you want to support this channel and allow us to continue doing things like 40-hour sprints for a weekend of filming, just to do it over and over and over again, that is the only reason we're able to do this.
Yeah.
That being said, Jan, we have an interview to have.
Oh my gosh. I don't think I'm ready, Jesse.
No, you're probably not.
No, I'm not. I'm not. Ugh.
So here's the thing, and I have some questions that I have planned. I have my card.
Uh-oh.
But I do want to give you the chance to do something that I think you haven't directly had the chance to do yet. And there's not a lot of people out there. I mean, there's not a ton of people watching, but for the people that made it to this point, I think they might actually be excited to learn this. You're in charge of the podcast since you started doing stuff with me. I think it's been about 8 months now. you've wanted something that was yours.
Yep.
Because most stuff is mine, right? I do the video production. I'm always, at least always a piece of the camera. And writing didn't quite feel like the thing. The podcast, you've taken full charge of. And it is a dream. Like, I love that show. The editing work and the skill and time you're putting into that is amazing. So take 30 seconds and tell them about it. Like, full on. Be proud of the fact that you're doing that. Like, I'm excited for you. So...
Hello, and welcome to the Quackalope Podcast. In this program, we are covering a bunch of things. We have currently two really unique formats. We have a format called Played It Once, and Played It Once is a format where we talk about our first impressions and why they matter in this hobby. I will give the quote to you, Jesse. How does it go?
First impressions matter. So we made a podcast about ours.
His favorite tagline that he's ever come up with.
I love it.
And we just talk about our first time with a game. Was it great? Was it bad? Was it slightly underwhelming? We get into all those details in that program, and that tends to be a little bit of improv, a little bit of more serious conversations, and we really try and delve as deep as possible into the games that we cover there. Then we have kind of like our feature format right now, which is the Weekly Quack. It's a variety show of board games where we talk about games that are either entering or leaving our collections. The Metley Minute, where we kind of talk about whatever we want. It's supposed to be a pause, a reprise of all of the serious conversations that happen at the beginning of the show and then at the end of the show. And then we cap it off with On the Radar, which is supposed to be a format where we talk about things that are making us excited, that are somehow available for you to learn more about. And I can't finish this off with also introducing or mentioning that we're not the only host in the Weekly Quack.
Oh, no, that's not what I thought you were going to say.
There's
a fourth segment.
No, there is a fourth segment.
Very important,
Very
Jan.
important, but before I get there, the entire Weekly Quack is co-hosted with Board Game Co. Alex, and there's
just a third perspective.
Third really unique perspective, and the conversations are fascinating. And before we finish, I think the most interesting subsection of that format of the Weekly Quack is going to be the audience feedback, where we go, that wasn't it? What am I missing?
Jan.
What? No, Jesse, stop it. That's not a format. Shush your mouth. There's a thing that Jesse likes to do.
They'll have to check in to find out.
You know what? Go check it out. You never know when it's going to come. But by golly, it's always there. At some point, Jesse does it. But you have to go and find out what it is. And then the final thing that we do is that we listen to the audience. We get all the feedback that we can. We read it on the podcast, and we talk a little bit about it. It can be questions about like our opinions on games. It could even be about maybe how to interact with your game group. We talk about all those things. And for now, because we are planning on slowly expanding this as we grow, that is the Quackalope Podcast. Available everywhere you consume podcasts.
So I wanted to give you a second, because it's good for us to brag about.
How'd I do?
You did good.
Yay.
But that's the first time, other than like little quips here and there in the videos that we filmed this week, the first time you've got a chance to like brag about a thing that is yours intrinsically.
Did my eyes lit up?
If you leave, I mean, I probably looked at you like a proud father for a little while, just sitting here like. I mean, I'm sure someone's gonna leave that comment. I think Matt was gonna leave that comment no matter what. So now to the hard hitting questions, Jan.
Uh-oh.
The real intense stuff.
Oh wow, we're starting there.
We're starting there. Why don't you like flavor text?
You know, I had a question about this that I forgot to ask you.
And we haven't given the other person insight into these conversations.
Oh, wait until you see Jesse's reactions.
At all.
I was going to ask you something about this. I was going to ask you why you consider flavor text a mechanic. That was going to be one of my hard-hitting questions.
Sadly, this is not an interview.
That's true. It's an interview for me. Look, it's not. I've grown to enjoy flavor text a little bit more since we started working together. But man, I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, we don't cut things.
Stop it.
We don't.
I've never been.
That's not what this show is.
I've never been someone that I don't know. I've
They're going to be
always
very confused as to why there was a cut there.
they'll never know. I've always been a little bit put away from reading for some reason. I've never really gotten into the habit of picking up a book and imagining everything that's inside that book. It's never been a quintessential part of my life. Although I know that I've always wanted to. I've always wanted to read, and I've always seeked out, like, try to carve out this mythical moment in my life where, this time I'm going to pick up a book and oh my gosh, I'm going to finish that book and I'm going to learn like 5 new words and ooh golly, I'm going to impress people with those new words. My lexicon is going to be amazing. But it never happened. And so as I started moving forward in my life, I started deviating to stories in a much more active way through video games, through cinema, through series. So for me, anything that became text or anything that became reading suddenly had this connotation of boring. Let's get to the action. Let's do the actual fun thing. And that's why. So it's not that I don't enjoy flavor text. It's just that I feel that what comes next is funner. Like I feel that to me is the true purpose of why I'm sitting down and I'm taking an opportunity to kind of like enjoy this with friends. But with that being said, I've learned through multiple teachings of games that I failed to do well, that actually starting off with the story of why we're all sitting here is so important for the game. It gives context for why everyone's sitting down. It gives you an idea. It sometimes even gives you slight nudges as to what you should be doing in the game. And I don't know, I feel it's more conducive to a much better experience at the end of the day because people don't approach it in such a serious manner, which I've noticed that I don't actually like that much. Like when we're playing, my favorite gameplays between you and me is when we're being wacky and having fun, and that's usually conducive, and that's usually a repercussion of you reading flavor text that you liked and then kind of building up a little story in your head. When we play Euros, it's a much more serious affair. Like we're trying to beat each other.
Sure.
But it's more quiet. It's not as rambunctious and as full of energy as I love. So in that sense, if flavor text, especially good flavor text or whatever narrative there is, gives me that type of experience with my friends, then it's definitely something that I'm much more open to. However, I don't want to read every single piece of flavor text. Maybe the beginning. The intro paragraph.
Wrong. So I'm gonna steal a question from the top of your show.
Oh.
I thought it was a good question, so why not?
Oh, I did gives a few good questions there.
Boil it down a little bit. How you doing?
Horrible. This has been the worst week of my life. Next.
Okay, well, we'll just move on to the next question.
It's been really nice, honestly. People like. For those that don't really know who I am, because I haven't been since I moved.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah, like I work normal job.
Question right here: who are you?
I don't see that there.
No, it does.
Okay, no, you're right. You're right.
Who are?
I don't know how to answer that, so don't ask it.
We'll get there.
I have a full-time job.
Sure.
And I've been missing I've been missing being on the channel. I've been missing hanging out with you, and I've been missing having the opportunity to kind of have exactly what we're doing with the camera. And so you were coming over to DC for something else. You were going to do a photo shoot. Yeah. And I saw an opportunity there. I was like, Jesse, let's not waste your time in DC. Let's just go record. And I decided willingly to take an entire week's vacation. And it's not like I'm going anywhere this year anyways, but getting a week's vacation.
Sure.
To do what we're doing today. And I'm really proud of everything we've done. I think out of everything, like we've had amazing moments. Like that first day that we played, I think it was Streets. That was like one of the funnest gameplay videos that I think we've done, period. Like it was so enjoyable. And it's not that I've forgotten, but every time that we get together, it's like a reminder of, whoa, we like actually really work well together, don't we?
Sure.
Like we're really good together.
Sure.
Holy cow.
Yeah, the first indication of that was the weekend we did like 12 games in a single day, just playing and tabling. And we just resorted to us sitting around like making odd sounds while playing the game. Remember, it was like 4 a.m. and we were playing, what was it, Architects.
Yeah.
After we just had a miserable learning experience with another game.
Yep.
And Architects just worked. And so we both were just middle of the night, 4 a.m. If there was a camera there, you would have just seen us going. We
were what is it called? That is like sky or something.
Like scatter, yeah, something.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. No, it was
ska. I don't know.
It's something with jazz.
There's a term.
There is. Let us know in the comments. Either way, it reminded me again of that. You know, and again, I've never forgotten it. It's always in the forefront of my mind. But you know, like sometimes it's hard to see you and so many other people like doing the things that I used to do with you every week, right?
Sure.
It becomes a little, I don't know, and for like someone like me that has...
You're very jealous of me.
No.
I mean, jealous of me, like you want more me in your life. Like we should move in together on a duck farm.
For someone that doesn't have like all that confidence in themselves sometimes, like those self-esteem issues come cropping up a little bit. So having these situations or these moments where it's like, oh my God, really, that's awesome. It's invigorating, really. It's a good like kick in the pants to remind you, like, hey, you're fine, you're good. And overall, man, I've had a lot of fun. We finally tabled Kingdom Death. You know, we've played some of my favorite games. We've played games that we've been wanting to try for so long. Mm-hmm. We've discovered some games just weren't for us, which is part of the thing. Not because of anybody in particular, Jesse. No, just because the game wasn't for us.
Yeah. Yep.
No, but it's been awesome. It's been great, honestly. And oh man, I really wish you were still like somewhere near where you wouldn't have to sacrifice so much to pick me up.
Because it's only 10 hours there and back.
It means so much that you're willing to do that every time. Like, I know that I have a feeling that anytime anybody hears that, they go like, what? He drives 10 hours to pick up that guy? I still sometimes think that. I think that. Yeah. I'm like, why is he doing this? But it really does mean the world.
Well, it's a simple answer. We went into it the other one. It's like, because that guy's willing to ride 10 hours back.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know, but it means so much that you're open to doing that. And so every time we get this opportunity, I'm always really happy.
On a broader scale.
Because
you also widened yours out a bit.
Uh-huh.
How are you?
I'm doing okay. Overall, like I've always had a really blessed life. I can't complain about my life in any particular juncture. And I think in comparison to how I've been in past years, I think I'm in a much better mental space than I've been in a really long time. So for those that don't know, I'm from Puerto Rico, and I lived the majority of my life in Puerto Rico. Probably like 26 años, 26 years. We're not supposed to get there yet. You don't control me. I was 26 years in Puerto Rico.
Sure. And how old are you now?
And I'm currently at 29.
Okay.
You know, edging 30. And when I moved to DC, I kind of got disconnected from myself in a lot of ways. I was in architecture. I moved to DC because of architecture. And since I was in architecture school, I knew that wasn't for me. But my family was really insistent that I get like an important profession, you know, a profession that people respect. Something that when I say Jan Bigas the architect, people would go like,
just in case any of them are watching
damn!
This, we'll just scoot the ducks off to the side.
That's what they wanted of me, and oh my gosh, I really tried. I graduated from a rigorous 4-year program where it was a combination of a bachelor's and a master's degree at the same time. I took over 20 credits a semester, like over 20 credits to try and graduate in the correct time span. I did not sleep. I let go of my initial dream, which was being in a band, so that I can focus on these studies. And this is supposed to be personal, right? So I remember
it's your call.
I remember crying. I remember I think it was first year and I swear this is going to tie into your question, but I remember the first year of being in architecture school and me calling up my professor, crying my eyes out because I didn't think I was good enough. Because I didn't think that I had what it takes to graduate from that school. And I did. I did graduate from the school, but it didn't give me the strength I was hoping for. And when I went to actually work in architecture, I was miserable. Because the way that architecture works, it's a really meticulous and slow profession. Architecture is not truly about creativity. It's about preparing the correct object in the correct setting.
Interesting.
You want to build this duck. You make the plans for the duck, and that duck, you don't see that duck until 3 years' time. I don't get gratification from things like that.
You get a lot of lines on a paper.
That's all I get. And the process of becoming a full-fledged architect, because I was an architect in training is the correct term, was miserable. It was horrible. It's just, they put you to prepare these unconsequential buildings for people that don't have really any inkling of what an architect is, and they expect you to do it for cheap, and they expect you to do it quickly, and you're expected to be in that office for 12 hours a day, just toiling at a computer, putting a little line that means absolutely nothing, that does absolutely no effect. Everything that I was sold in school was a lie. And I started giving up on myself a little bit, because every single time that I went online and I saw what other people were doing, I felt like nothing. I felt like I was no one. Really, it was so crushing to see how beautiful the work that some other people were doing and how true professionals they were in their field, that I felt like I could never equate. And so from that point onwards, I decided to quit my job in Puerto Rico so that I can pursue computer animation.
Okay.
And then I got another job opportunity, and that ended up me transferring over to DC, because I'm the type of person that when I see an opportunity that could potentially help me grow, I tend to just kind of like throw caution to the wind and woo, jump in. And that's what I did. And I moved to DC, and this is where your answer comes in. And I lost sight of myself even more. I remember having a conversation with myself one day and being like, are dreams really that important? Like, do you need to achieve anything really to be truly happy? Are you, like, is it fine to just exist, just be, just, move forward without necessarily reaching anything in particular? And I convinced myself at that time that was a yes. Like, I tricked myself into thinking that I didn't need absolutely anything to drive me. And so I kind of started, drifting slowly forward, not really knowing where I was going at all, and letting go to the things that actually made me happy. And today, the contrast is pretty remarkable, because not only do I have something to strive for now, but I also kind of feel that I have a little bit more weight to me. In architecture, I felt like no one. Just some grunt. And what I'm doing now, I don't feel equipped to do it. But I do it anyways. Here, in this space,
You're overqualified.
in a way, like I feel like someone here. And if I'm not someone right now, I'm willing to keep working for it, because I have a feeling I can make it. And I've never had that before. So how am I doing? I'm doing really freaking good.
Good. By the way, if you ever need a subtle squeak, just a relief, like, let me know, give me a wink. We don't need to let them know. Exactly. We don't need to let them know, but if you need that, I got you covered.
I went low and a little bit high, but I ended on a good note.
I'm just letting you know.
I ended on a good note.
I've got a defensive quack over here. We'll drop a squeak if it's needed. So, the question that you said you didn't know how to answer. Who are you? And here's where I want to tie this to. A little bit more on a broader scope. Something you already touched into.
Mm-hmm.
You already said you grew up 26 years of your life in Puerto Rico. give some context to, like, who you are. Like, childhood, teens, growing up. You already did a lot when it comes to, like, history and career. But what other things are important? What other things define, like, if you had to do a list of keywords or something, just define you, what would go on that list?
I was born into the perfect family, in the sense of I was incredibly lucky to have loving grandparents, loving uncles, and an incredibly supportive and beautiful and wonderful mother. It is the cornerstone of who I am today. And my entire life I was raised, I don't think even actually verbalized, but you need to be thankful for what you are and what you have. And you need to give that back in some way or some form to the people that you deem are part of your life. And I know that a lot of people, when they come from, by the way, I'm not rich. if that's what I was implying, I'm not rich. I am rich in key fundamental elements that drive towards a really happy childhood. That's what I'm rich in. I'm rich in the sense that my grandfather is a superhero.
Yeah.
I'm rich in the sense that my mother is the most loving human that anyone could ever meet. I'm rich in that sense. And that, it's kind of weird because I consider myself apathetic in a lot of ways, but at the same time, I'm very mindful of where I come from and how important it is to give back in that sense. And when I say give back, I don't mean in charitable ways. I mean in the way of my day-to-day, the people that are around me. Like, once somebody is my friend, I really do try to give them absolutely anything they need. I'm not the most communicative person in the world, but man...
You're wrong about that. That's a question. I literally just wrote down communication.
No, but really, I don't tend to reach out to my best friends all the time.
That's what you mean.
Once you're my best friend, that's it. You don't need to check in at any time. Sure. Like, I could talk to you in 40 years and I would still hug you and embrace you like we just met yesterday. That's how I am. Like, once you are in that space in my heart, you're locked in for life. The only way that you get out of there is if you decide to get out. But beyond that, you will always have that part of me. And I guess these questions make me so introspective in a lot of ways. Like, they make me like look inside. And if I were to describe who I am, I guess that I'm an awkward little kid that was into Pokemon and cards in a place that nobody liked those. In the body now of a...
You need those distractions from time to time.
In the body of an adult man that is now actually letting that kid out.
Interesting.
That's how I would define myself, because it took me so long to, like, be okay with it.
Yeah.
It took me, like, oh my God. I remember being, like, what was it, like 16 or 15, and being like, man, I should learn piano because that would make me more interesting.
Yeah, instead of Pokemon.
Or I should learn the proper way of sitting down at a dining table and knowing all the little pieces of a dining set so that I could be fancier and people could be more impressed with me.
You don't know all the pieces to a dining set?
I don't. I had no idea.
Oh, wow.
I can't, like, if you put a salad fork next to a fork, I'll eat with the salad fork the entire time. I have no clue. But those are the types of things that I would tell myself every so few months. I was never enough. Because the things I liked, nobody cared for. Nobody really ever gave importance to, like, me being a geek and me liking weird stuff. And now I'm in a hobby that everybody loves weird, crazy things. So that's who I am.
So I do want to dive into part of this conversation that I find interesting personally is, like, even though we're good friends,
debatable.
Even though we're friends.
No, good friends. I already told you you're one of my best friends in the other video. What do you mean?
Even though we know each other.
Even though we're acquaintances. From afar.
Even though. There is an interesting thing about interviewing each other, right? Because not only are we doing this to do this, but part of the idea, part of my thought process around it is like, oh, this will be interesting because most people don't interview each other.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning you don't always take the time to ask or listen or really pay attention, right? Like, it's an interesting, and people should try it without a camera on sometime. Like, sit down and be like, I want to interview you.
I think I'm going to do it with Vivian.
It'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me, I've never been to Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. I honestly don't know that much about it. I know little snippets from what you've talked about, but my lens of Puerto Rico is largely through you. I also know that Lin-Manuel did a charity thing for Hamilton over in Puerto Rico, because I did at the time.
Don't ever mention that there.
I don't know anything about it. All I know is at the time I thought that might be the last chance I have to ever see Lin-Manuel do a thing on, do a thing. I couldn't go.
Yeah, me neither.
Give me some context. What is Puerto Rico like? What has it been like for you? Where, like, in terms of your memory of home, like, that's 20. I mean, that's more than home. Like, that's like 26 years of you. And I'm excited. Like, I've joked about the fact that it's like this holiday, I'd like to go back. Unless you kick me off the plane or I'm unable to fly, I really am hoping, if not over the holidays, at some point to, like, go travel through Puerto Rico with you. I can't wait.
Puerto Rico is honestly, like, I've been to a few places, and Puerto Rico to me is still one of the most beautiful areas that I've ever seen.
Yeah, we always drive through Kentucky, and I'm like, Jan, look. And you're like, it's not Puerto Rico. And I'm like, Jan, they're cows. And you're like, yeah, well.
And there's a reason for that. Like, Puerto Rico, in terms of geographically and in terms of ecosystems, is one of the most rich in the world for an island that's basically the size of that duck.
Yeah.
In comparison to the entire world. Like, if the world is this room, that's Puerto Rico, pretty much. And Puerto Rico has rainforests. Puerto Rico has deserts. Puerto Rico has rich marine life, like bioluminescent bays.
That's cool.
Puerto Rico has lakes and forests and, like, mountainscapes, everything that you could, almost every single type of ecosystem is in there. So I was never an adventurous type, and I've never been. Oh, beaches as well, obviously.
Sure.
It is an island. But, like, if you're an adventurous type of person, you can get lost. Like, you could do literally everything you want in Puerto Rico. And so, in terms of the island, it is such a beautiful place to kind of, like, call home. And it's gorgeous. It's amazing. Honestly, it's a place that I always recommend visiting. And then the people are so warm and so inviting and so, what would be the charming in a way. You go to Puerto Rico, and depending on who you're talking to, because obviously not everyone's like that, but depending on where you are, people will usually always respond to you, like, almost with open arms. Like, they will welcome you in, and they will make you feel a part of that island experience in a way. Man, and that's that type of warmth in person is something that I don't tend to see very often. I sometimes kind of feel uncomfortable when I'm traveling to other places where people don't seem to, like, be actually happy that you're there. Like, you feel like an outsider. In my experience in Puerto Rico, that doesn't tend to be the case, because at least for, like, one example, for when Americans visit, like, most of us talk English. Like, most of us know. And people that don't know English, either they didn't have the means to learn English, or they decided not to. They didn't want it. Or they're just really self-conscious about their English, and they don't want to admit they talk English, which happens a lot more often than you think. So in that other way, in the more sociological way, Puerto Rico is a place that feels really good to be in. It feels really welcoming in a lot of ways for people that are visiting. Now, from a personal standpoint, Puerto Rico is a place that I never felt I belonged in. Puerto Rico is characterized by having incredibly outspoken, extroverted, and rambunctious people as part of, like, the common populace. Ask how many parties we have every year. Ask how many crazy traditions we have. Like, the major pastime in Puerto Rico is literally going to the old town. That's what we call, like, in Ponce, my hometown, we would call it El Pueblo. like the town, but it's like the old town.
You know
really.
exactly what you're talking about when you say it, though, right? The town, and it's like everyone knows.
Yeah, so, and it was like the historic center of Ponce, and everything, you know, the suburbs and everything grew around it, but the town, el pueblo, that's where you would go to hang out the entire week. And it was just bar hopping all the time. And people in Puerto Rico love to party and drink and just like bond like that all the time. I hated it. To this day, I still don't like it. I was always an introvert, and I never had a place in Puerto Rico where I felt comfortable and celebrated. And to this day, I still don't in a lot of ways. My brothers were the perfect antithesis of me. Like, not person, like, yes, they were the perfect antithesis of me. They were like these really handsome jocks that had all the girls that would go party every day and would be super fine and like really outspoken, and every place they would go to, they would be the highlight of the story. And I was like the ugly duckling. I was like on the side, and I didn't have anything to talk about because I just finished watching an anime, or I just finished watching Cartoon Network for something, or I just finished my video game, and nobody cared about any of that stuff. And so Puerto Rico, for like, it never really felt like home in a lot of ways. Like, as an adult today, I have fonder memories. Like, the friendships I made in Puerto Rico are amazing. I wouldn't change those for the entire world. Like, I still talk to most of my friends, like my true core friends from Puerto Rico. I talk to them almost every day. It's not like conversations like you and I have, because we talk about Quackalope and we talk about a lot of things. But they're still very much a part of me, and I wouldn't have had them if I wasn't in Puerto Rico. But the only reasons why I didn't like collapse in the island was because I had to kind of like force a group to appear. I had to like find the people. When here, I literally arrived in DC and there was Labyrinth, and boom, that was it.
Sure.
So yeah, like the island is very bittersweet for me. Like, I think it's a gorgeous place with, like, amazing human beings that are so warm. And the people in Puerto Rico are gorgeous. Like, beautiful. You have no idea. Like, people from there are really pretty. But, yeah. It's I might change my tune in the future. And Puerto Rico in itself is also a place to be really proud of as well, in some ways. In the way that it's grown and kind of, like, evolved through time a little bit. Like, one of the most recent things that I've become proud of is, I remember when the first time I went to New York, that I learned about how much Americans kind of like, you know, fight for the things they want. Growing up in Puerto Rico, I had no idea what that's like. Because being we've been a colony, or something like a colony, like so many times in our history.
Your territory, technically, or something like that. Yeah, without like, voting rights. And not statehood, but state-ish. Like, we've been put down so many times that like the last time that we had like a big protest or something was, man, back in the day, and that ended up really badly. So very recently, I think I'm not sure if it was last year. I think it was last year. We had one of the biggest protests that we've ever had in the history of Puerto Rico. Like, the entire expressway, I'm not sure if that's the name, but the entire expressway was filled with actual human bodies. Like, every person was standing like this, filling out the entire expressway. And that was a really proud moment for my country. Like, that's something that unheard of in so, like, almost like, oh man, my best friend would completely murder me, but I think over 100 or 80, like over 100 years or something like that, or 80 something, it was a huge thing. So yeah, that's a little bit where Puerto Rico ends up for me. You mentioned a figure who is there, who I've heard you talk about.
My grandpa?
A little bit, yeah. You knew exactly where I was going. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about him.
Well,
because I also very highly, rank and have my grandfather as like a person, right? He's like, he's like one of the most influential, respectable people. So I find it interesting that you have that figure there as well.
Yeah. So my grandpa can leap from building to building in a single bound. Sometimes people confuse him for a plane. No, a bird.
Yep.
No, it's grandpa. And he has super strength too. So yeah, you might have seen, there have been some media elements that have
Sure.
been inspired
Sure.
directly by
That's cool.
him. He never claimed, like, he was fine with
Didn't
it.
need royalties.
No, he didn't need the royalties. Yeah, he's a cool guy. Okay, fine. No, like, okay, so my family comes from Cuba. Like, I'm half Puerto Rican, half Cuban. And my grandpa was there when Fidel Castro got power. Like, my grandpa escaped communism.
Interesting.
He ran away. Like, he didn't run away.
Yeah.
He fought as much as he could to stay and protect everything he had there until the
when the-
moment that he knew that it was not possible.
The last brick was pulled. Yeah.
And he gave away everything. Like, my grandpa's family in Cuba had, like, haciendas, which are, what do you call it? Like, big farms. And they were really well off in Cuba. And my grandpa and his family gave everything away.
The government took it, or
They had to give it to the
They had to
government
give it
so
to
that
the
they had
government.
permission to leave.
so they could leave?
And from that point onwards, every single year after that until the end of this story, it was constant struggle for my grandpa. He moved to New York. He became, while being deathly afraid of heights, he became a skyscraper window washer. After that, he vacuumed the sky because he couldn't, he did it, but he couldn't bear it. He became like a vacuumer for those people. He worked at the restaurants, not being let in the front door because he was like the help. And my grandma used to sew purses in a big factory floor while also taking care of my mom. And my uncle, like, came a little bit later, but basically, you know, kind of leading up to that. And being in New York, he kept struggling and kept fighting until one day he got a call from Puerto Rico. One of his cousins he had more family in Puerto Rico. And so he decided to jump over there. And so when he went to Puerto Rico, he decided to become a truck driver. Doesn't sound like a big deal until I explained that by the time that my grandpa was a truck driver, the roads in Puerto Rico, so this was my grandpa's truck, and this was the size of the road. And he would have to drive trucks at 2, 4, 5 a.m. in the morning on the smallest roads on the side of a mountain. And he did that for like 3 to 4 years. No complaints. Always fighting. Always working really hard because nothing mattered more to my grandpa than for his family to be okay. That's all he did. He just worked. And then one day, his cousin calls him up and he goes, "Hey, I have an opportunity at this business I'm working in. You wanna join me? You wanna be my partner?" Sure. Yeah, let's do it. So he moved over to my hometown, to Ponce. However, that wasn't necessarily true. What ended up happening is that my grandpa became the car washer. My grandpa became the guy that vacuumed the cars, while his cousin was the guy that was sitting pretty in the back. But he supposedly called my grandpa his partner. So they had an agreement very early on, and basically the guy told him, when I will sign, like when I'm leaving this when I'm not gonna work in Mecca Car Wash, which is the name of the gas station, it's important. You will get it. Like when I don't need it anymore. So when that cousin was in his deathbed, my grandpa, without any remorse, he goes with a contract and he says, "Sign here now, because I've worked for you for over 8 years or whatever it was. You owe me this, please." And he did it. And from that point onwards, my grandpa became a success story. A man that never finished school because when his family was working in the haciendas or working in the farms, they needed him. So he didn't have time to finish high school. A guy that drove bus routes in La Habana to try and make ends meet, that ended up being a window washer, working in restaurants in the back alleys, going as a truck driver in the old roads. Like, he did it. He got his family exactly where he wanted to. And dude, my grandpa would drive me to school every single day. He would be the first dude to kind of be out there waiting for me every morning. and he would be waiting for me, and he put on some music, put on the air conditioning really high because I always liked it to be super, super cold. And there was not a single day that my grandpa wasn't there to pick me up. And there wasn't a single time that I did not have my grandpa at that time. So yeah, my grandpa is a superhero in a lot of ways.
That's cool. So we're going to transition a little bit.
Yeah, you think so?
I know. You never, look, you didn't ask for this week. You didn't ask for it. So the next thing I have here is going to bridge over into the people that are familiar with this channel. Right? And this genuine question. Why are you here? Why? Like,
For the ducks!
Yeah.
Of course!
I have written down why Quackalope / board games.
So, remember when I told you that I'm a grown man that's letting out his inner child,
Sure.
finally? Like, that kid that he buried so much. As I was growing up, I never had sports. I hate sports. I don't like exercise, and I don't like sweating.
You don't like exercise?
I hate it so
I
much.
don't even like going down the stairs
I
here.
don't. I don't like walking. If I could be on like in those
That
little
was one of the
scooters-
first things I learned about you. Like, I'll go out and walk for miles. And I had you walk like 3 blocks to the store. One of our very first meetings, I was like, dude, we'll just run down and grab snacks.
Like, what?
And like halfway there, you're like, why are we doing this?
It's true. It's true. I've never, like, that's why we have cars, man.
Mm-hmm.
Look, in Puerto Rico, you don't get anywhere without a car, okay?
Yeah.
We didn't walk. It was too warm to go walking.
I hear
There was
you.
no time.
Do you hear what you're saying?
So, yeah, I've never liked it. I never liked it. So I never had that sense of camaraderie and strategic thinking and all these cornerstones of personalities that you get from sports. I'm willing to admit that sports can actually be something really beneficial for people. And I didn't have that. So I didn't have that opportunity to like bond through others through a cool activity. The only thing I had was video games. And man, like video games felt too artificial, right? Like video games were a little separate world where I didn't get to interact with people, where I didn't get to really see my friends or be with my friends. Like the best games for me was when I could invite all my friends over to play multiplayer and like all the controllers together, looking at the same screen. But at the same time, we were looking at a screen. We weren't looking at each other. We weren't really interacting. And so one of my best friends discovered HeroClix. When we discovered HeroClix, I discovered, like, holy cow, I can spend time with people that I actually have to, like, form small talk and, like, think. That's really cool. So I went for it. And that's when a new area in my life, a new obsession, because I'm also, like, you're a person that you obsess and obsess. You're fanatical sometimes, right? I tend to be very impassioned about the things I love. And board games became that. Board games, I did an article on this on the website. Board games to me are my sports. And it's a really weird comparison, but admit like when I think it in my head, it makes sense. Because board games give you the fundamentals that you find in sports. Board games teach you about teamwork in cooperative games. Board games teach you about losing and winning, the same you do in sports. How to know how to interact with people in different circumstances when your adrenaline is high, when your adrenaline is low. Board games teach you how to problem solve, which is everything you do every second that you're in an arena or you're doing this in sports. Board games give you the chance to feel like a badass, which is something you 100% get in sports whenever you land the net, do a home run, get a goal. That it's not the same shot of adrenaline, right? But you get an endorphin rush from winning, or you get an endorphin rush from having like a really good turn. So I finally found an equivalent for myself where, hey, this is a thing that's really cool to be able to bond with people around. And sure, I don't have sports, and I might not ever like sports. Spoiler, I still don't. But I found a thing that felt equivalent, that was beyond video games, because I was so tired, like, Video games are amazing, but at the same time, they're so isolating.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I ended up in board games. That's how I like became part of the hobby. But that's only from like the more mechanical perspective, right? That's where I fell in love with what board games could promise. Then comes you and the hobby, which are to me are two different things actually. Like the hobby or the like let me explain. So board games was a way for me to like bond with my friends. I didn't know there was a world beyond it, right? I didn't know what the word hobby in our field now means. Hobby here means community. That wasn't what it meant for me before. Hobby was literally a hobby. So when I got into Quackalope, I did not know about that world. I had no idea about how amazing publishers are and how warm the people in this industry can be. I did not know what it meant to strive for something where you felt good at. I didn't know how special board games truly were. So when we started working together and I started seeing the other side behind the cardboard, right? The people responsible for these things that had brought me so much enjoyment, I felt deeper in love than I had before. I've never been in a space of work because technically, like when we were at PAX, right? Technically we were working, but holy cow, it didn't feel like it.
Sure.
It felt like I was just meeting new friends to hang out with.
Sure.
But in between, we were talking about like important stuff. But we were still friends.
Mostly what game we wanted to play, but
Yeah.
important stuff.
Yeah. But they still felt friendly. I didn't have to put this charade of complicated verbiage to try and impress them or come up with the latest code standards and prove to them that I am informed enough about what's going on in the world. I didn't have to put any airs. I just had to be me. And that was hook, line, and sinker right there. Right? That acts like that opportunity that Quackalope gives me, that you give me, to be part of that. Because now I don't feel like an outsider. I feel part of the hobby.
So I do have a follow-up question. I am gonna like inch closer to this camera here just so I can check the time. I can't quite see how long it's been or how much time we have. Let me check.
45:50.
45:50. All right.
Oh no, it's there.
It's the bottom one.
47.
Okay. So we have a little bit of time left. Again,
Oh.
I'm not cutting that out. I just want to. I in the back of my mind. You know how I constantly have editing, cutting in the back of my mind? I'm trying to get a gauge of time.
Are you implying that I'm the one that's rambling this time?
No. What I'm saying is I don't want to accidentally hit the time window because I'm so focused on the conversation that the camera cuts
Sure.
without the conversation. Because I should have. I realized right as we started, instead of leaving this on the same card that we did the last one on, meaning I gave myself an artificial frame, which still should be enough, but I still boxed myself in. So in my brain, I'm like,
I don't know, Jesse.
I should have swapped cards.
I touched on all my questions. I think
did.
you've touched on 3 of your 10.
All right, Jan. I do go on longer than you do typically.
You answered all my questions.
I did.
And I had 12.
I know, but you were conducting it, whereas now I'm conducting it, which means things go on longer than they should. So, along with that question, though, let's bridge that question just a little bit. You have taken off work this week. We went into that a little bit. This is the third time you've been down here. Even up in D.C., you would come out until like 1 or 2 a.m. Why all of that? Why are you, out of everyone around, why are you still willing
I've never found
to ride 8 hours,
I don't know.
16
I already have
hours
the answer.
total?
I already have the answer.
I'm just letting the audience know, why are you here?
I've never found a partner I can trust in. Like you. Never. The only time that I ever had that was when I was in my band. That was by this point, over 10 years ago. Not once have I found someone that I feel has the drive and the potential to get somewhere important, but above all, that I can trust in with my dreams and aspirations. Which is which is a big reason why I decided not to kind of move forward with that. Because I've always been a person that I kind of feed off of the people around me a little bit. I'll admit that openly, right? I'm someone that, if I'm surrounded by people that are motivated in doing things, etc., I'm gonna do it too a little bit. It's not that I don't do it by myself 100%, but that was about 4 years ago, and we already talked about that part. So when I saw Quackalope the first time, I saw that's really cool. I've never seen that before in this space. That's amazing.
You saw me.
It was your Valor and Villainy. Yeah, it was Valor and Villainy.
It was like Valor and Villainy is the very first Kickstarter coverage.
That's how I saw you.
We ever did on the channel.
I saw that and I said, I'm gonna talk to that guy immediately. And for a miracle, you were in DC.
Mm-hmm.
So
did you find out I was in DC before? Like, how'd you connect the dots that I was there?
I remember that story I told you about that weird guy that was with the camera.
You connect the dots there.
Yeah, I noticed that was you. I was like, whoa. So I reached out to Arsenio or somebody in Labyrinth, and I asked, like, who was that guy? Mm-hmm. His name is Jesse Anderson. I'm like, oh, what? What is he? Mm-hmm. Oh, he's the guy in the Quackalope. So that's how I kind of connected the dots in that way.
Because I remember you emailed me, and I remember I was staying with my friend at the time, setting up in her apartment and filming everything literally in her living room, then breaking back down in Georgetown. And I remember being like, your email came in. Like, James Hudson had sent me Valor and Villainy, and then, like, a month later, your email came through, and I was like, I'm doing something. Someone wants to do something with me. Like, you know, for me, that was a moment, too, right? Like, that was a very proud, like, oh, I splashed a little. Like, I'm just learning how to swim, and it's like I just fluttered her wings and, like, paddled my feet a little bit, and it's like someone reached out. I had an impact.
Funny thing is that I wasn't anyone by that time, but you didn't know that.
Though. I mean, but still neat. Like, yeah, I remember that being that was a cool moment.
So I found a partner in you, Jesse. That's the true reason why I'm still here. Because, like, I could potentially break into the hobby in any other way I want. Like, probably now with the people I know and the things I do.
And you've seen that it's a little bit more accessible than maybe you originally thought it was, right?
But dude, like, I love Quackalope. I love working with you. It's like I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, is it always butterflies and sunshine?
For a moment there, I thought, well, this conversation's gone a different way. Jan's gained the confidence to just do his own thing. This has turned into an announcement that Jan's breaking off. And
we'll see you guys next time.
Remember to do the important thing. Subscribe to the other channel, Quackalope Split in Half.
I never. Well, there are things we've talked about, but that's together too. Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. I found a partner in you, and beyond that, like we already talked about, I found a friend, like a good friend.
Sure.
And I wouldn't lose that for anything in the world. Like, I love what we do together.
What is the hardest part
about working with you?
About this whole thing?
Well, it's tough to gauge your emotions a lot of the time, and it's hard to gauge what's truth and what's not. You're very, like, you tend to...
Wait.
You tend to be... Like, you tend to talk from like, very, very spontaneously, right? That's the word? And when things affect you, like, you say things, I'm not going to say them, but you say things that always make me worry, right?
Like I'm quitting and moving off to a duck farm.
Yes, correct. Yes. Things like that.
Like I own the URL, imgoinghiking.com.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like saying...
Which I do.
I know.
Own the URL.
I know. imgoinghiking.com.
imgoinghiking.com.
Too late, guys. He has it. He has like 100 URLs.
Not 100.
Another thing for another interview that we could potentially talk about. Sure. Either way. So that constant shift of trying to understand where you're really at is something that I struggle with a little bit, right? Like, it's not simple for me to know, like, oh, he's kidding 100%, because I'm also really... I'm nervous.
You're gullible.
Me. Yeah, I'm gullible. I'm anxious at the same time. Mm-hmm. So when you say stuff like that, I get worried. Yeah. Beyond that...
And I'm just stubborn. So
that's exactly what I was going to get to.
I say things as a joke and just to be like, I'm quitting and going to a duck farm. And in my mind, I was like, well, I did it, so I'll just keep doing this thing. And you're like, oh my God, he might actually move to a duck farm.
Yeah, 100%. And then the other thing I was about to... another thing that sometimes... It's not true as much anymore, but I don't know, like, you're so stubborn that sometimes it doesn't feel like you're listening, right? Like I try... Like, sometimes I feel like I'm trying to get something to go through your head, and it doesn't go. When I think it's like a good... Like, this is a good thing, Jesse!
I just realized that the question I asked was the hardest part of this whole thing, and The answer became, well, you.
Well, but it's true.
I mean, it could be you could be missing Vivian.
But you're
it
like
could
the
be,
well,
it could
sure.
be like learning board games. It could be
No,
like
of
the
course
8-hour
not.
road trip down. Like there's a lot of other things that you
I
could
see
have
my
answered.
wife every day.
But instead, you were like, well,
But bro, like, what do we have hung out right now for what, over 60 hours together, just you and me.
well, I mean, there's 24 hours in a day.
No, even more than that.
Don't count sleeping.
Almost
I suppose.
100. We've hung out consecutively over 100 hours.
Every waking hour of most of this week.
That at the end of the day will always. It's not like, let me be clear. It's not hard because I know I'm super patient with you. Like I am, but not in a bad way.
It's not hard. I'm really patient.
I appreciate you. I understand you.
Well, while you dig these holes,
I appreciate you and I understand
bridge
you.
over here to another
And
part of the conversation.
like.
So, Jan,
I care for you. That's the reason. It's more like an active relationship, you know?
One thing I wrote down that is a thing that I really do admire about you. That I think.
You have things you admire about me?
No.
Okay, that's what I thought.
There's some things that I think I can learn from you in terms of, or
I was going to ask that question
over
too,
the last year or
actually.
so. There's been some things that I'm like, oh, that's something Jan does really well that maybe I should become slightly better at. And one of those that I've noticed from the very beginning is communication. Specifically around your emotional state. Now, you're not always quick to do it, and not everyone's always quick to do it, but you always do it. Why is that? How did you end up there? Why are you the type of person that when there's an issue, you're willing to, almost to your detriment, bridge that conversation to make sure that happens? Because I know a lot of people, like myself, if I can just grunt and bear it, and it's just bothering me, I'll just drop it, right? I don't need to dig it up, type of thing.
Okay. Remember when I said that I moved to DC and that things in DC weren't great when I started? When I bottle up things so much, I crumble to the floor and have a panic attack.
Okay.
One of the scariest moments in my life was one day that I was in my apartment and I just couldn't bear anything. Like, I crumbled to the floor and I didn't stop crying for like 2 hours or 3. I couldn't stand up. I remember like putting my back against the wall and collapsing and just calling my best friend, crying, saying I wasn't enough, right? And the reason why that happened is because I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't have a space where I felt comfortable enough to share my insecurities or to share like this anxiety that consumes me. Because I have general anxiety disorder, which is fine. Like,
legitimately, it's a brain thing. Mm-hmm. You done got it.
It's my mom's fault, by the way. Because my mom is 100% like that.
She passed it on to you, yeah.
So, that day, I decided to do something different. That day, I went and I tried to find a psychologist that could help me, because I also had like this negative connotation with psychology, like if you go there you're crazy or whatever. Like, not really, but there was a little smidgen of that somewhere in my mind. So I went and got help. I went and talked to people, and I went and really tried to dig deep into like all these doubts that I had about myself and all these doubts that I have about people. And one of the other reasons why I decided to stop focusing on Drive so much is because it was hurting me. It was hurting me not being anywhere. It was hurting me not being where I thought I would be when I was 25,
sure,
or 27, or 28, etc. So I learned that communication was key, and I prefer to burn something to the ground because I was being honest than stay quiet about it and just push through like nothing was ever happening.
Sure.
And so that lesson kind of like got imbued. I will never forget that version of Jan in that corner just repeating the same word for like 2 hours. Mm-hmm. I'll never forget that, and I don't ever want to be there anymore, and I don't care what happens in the meantime. I'm not going to allow myself to ever reach that mental space again.
Mm. So you let things out before you're there. Makes sense. So, transitioning a little bit. We talked in our conversation, which will be posted tomorrow, about the concept of 5 years, right? Like that was the window I gave myself to be somewhere. Like So for me, I was very deterministic when I approached starting Quackalope, when I approached how much it would cost for me to get somewhere. You weren't really ever part of the equation. Like, I did think
I'm still not. But it's fine.
I did think I'd be somewhere really cool. Like, and that does mean that you're part of that bridge. Like, this is somewhere really cool, right? But like, in my headspace, I didn't have someone else doing anything alongside of me. So, in terms of the next 5 years, where do you think you might, like, where are you headed? Like, what would you, like, and you don't have to have specifics, but where's that window? Like, what is the price you're paying things for? Because I know the cost that I'm paying. Why, again, same type of question, why are you here?
I didn't know this was a job interview. Should I leave my resume by the door?
I'd appreciate it.
Yeah? Cool. I don't know. I see myself working with you every day. And I see myself wanting to have equal weight and equal responsibility within this brand. I want to be able to just do this all the time. And in terms of sacrifices, I don't know. It's not. I don't view it as sacrifice. It's just like this is my passion, my life. It's just what I want to do. I don't see coming out here as a sacrifice. Not really. Like, sure, I'm sacrificing days off work, but it feels like something necessary. It doesn't feel like I'm giving away so much. Like sure, 100% that I wish Vivian could be right here, right now with us. But she's so supportive, so I don't feel like I'm really giving anything up. It doesn't feel like a sacrifice in that way. It just feels like something that has to happen. So I don't question it ever. It's just like, this is where I'm heading, and this is what I gotta do. If I gotta take off work for a little bit, I'll take off work for a little bit. If I have to finish a podcast for 5 or 6 hours in a row, I'll finish the podcast for 5 or 6 hours in a row. If I have to learn a game for 2 hours and I have to learn, like, it's a reality now. It's not an ambition that I see 5 years. I'm currently in there. I'm not projecting. I'm working. Know what I mean?
Sure.
I don't tend to be the person with enough foresight or every single step of the way that's planned out. I just know that if I have to do something now, I'm just going to do that now.
So what I've heard is you support my dream for a duck farm. All right. Now let's start bridging out just a little bit off the top of your head, because I think people are curious about this, and I'm curious about this. I think I know a few of them. Yeah, you're double checking that time. We've got a little bit left.
Okay, just in case.
Off the top of your head, without too much thought, top 5 games.
Oh, why do you do this? You know I can't answer.
Go.
Millennium Blades. Monsterland.
Okay.
Brass Birmingham. Great Western Trail. Oh man, which is the last one? I think it's a Euro. Where is it? I'm trying to picture my library. Do I have to answer the 5th one?
I don't know.
I don't? Okay, perfect. That's it. 4 top games.
So you got 4 top games there?
I have more. I just can't remember them.
Things get slotted in and out.
I told you I have horrible memory. I hate my memory. I'm horrible with, like, immediate recollection of things.
Why did those 4 immediately come to mind?
Quickly?
Well, like, just we don't need to go into what those games are, but for those that are familiar with them or interested in them, like, why, if those 4 are the ones that popped up.
Oh, sure. Bunny Kingdom might be in my top. I don't know if top 5, but it's the one that comes up. Okay, so
why'd they show up?
I'll try to do it in order. I don't remember the order I said them in. Millennium Blades.
Yeah. Which is usually
the one I always come for.
That's always been your go-to. It's like your Kingdom Death.
No. Okay, well, no, not really.
In terms of the area of nostalgia it controls in our hobby?
Sure, maybe. So I used to be really big into card games. Like I used to be in Magic. I used to be in Yu-Gi-Oh. I used to be a little bit in Pokemon. Card games were a part of my life. And Millennium Blades gave me the space where I can kind of revisit that as many times as I wanted to. Like the way that the card play and everything that happens in that game is really reminiscent of like opening up a booster pack or like reliving that really one amazing combo. And you're building the entire game towards a really cool thing. Like it's just one amazing moment.
One really good turn.
That you'll probably collapse afterwards for the rest of the game.
Sure.
But man, when you get there, it is like that feeling is amazing. Like you really worked hard to get there. And the level of adaptability in the game, like you always have to be on your toes. You have to kind of like watch what everyone's doing. It's so fun. It's incredibly fiddly and incredibly non-elegant, but it's so unique in the way it does things. They're coming up with an expansion that I think is going to make the game a lot better. So I kind of haven't played it until that expansion comes in because I want to experience it with that.
Okay.
But the game is amazing. Like it'll never truly leave my library. The next one in that list was it Breath Birmingham or was it Monsterlands?
Did Monsterlands next?
Yeah. So this is a kind of like it's a tough one to talk about because I need to play it even more so to make sure that after everything I've played so far, it's still there.
Still holds that spot.
But man, I love dice allocation games. Like I love them, and the theme in Monsterlands is the theme of one of my favorite video games, which is Monster Hunter. Like you're going out and you're building up an army of I don't know, well, literally these monster hunters are trying to defend the realm, and you have to bring traps with you, and you have to do all these things, and it's all through like this cascading amount of dice. Like the dice in this game, like it starts with this, then it goes to this, and then you're literally rolling all that. And you have to figure out how you're going to place everything throughout the game. And that kind of like that puzzle, that mechanic, I haven't seen it done in a way that feels so gratifying.
You also really love the idea of capturing big creatures.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why.
That's a theme that you just, I mean, from probably your Pokemon and your
Monster Hunter.
Yeah, your Monster Hunter. Like that is a sweet spot. The same way that Redwall has painted forest creatures for me, right? Mm-hmm. Your next one, you had Brass on there,
and then okay, so Brass, I love Euros. Euros are fantastic.
And specifically Birmingham.
Yeah, specifically Birmingham, because there's Lancashire and then there's Birmingham. For Birmingham, I love the subtle complexity in that game. Like the rule set is honestly super simplistic in comparison to a lot of other Euros, right? I think it's around probably 10 pages, a little bit beautifully illustrated. I'm talking about specifically the Roxley version, but. Well, actually, no. I'm sorry. Birmingham is the Roxley version. Lancashire was the original. Either way, honestly, it's like it's like a perfect Euro. It has absolutely everything. It has engine building, it has route building, it has resource management, it has trading and understanding the level of complexity that you're trying to build towards. There's a tableau that you have to build out by placing out your buildings in certain spots, blocking others' routes, potentially giving them the chance to. You have other smaller ways. There's tons and tons of decision space in the game, and a lot of strategies that you can go through. And my God, it's just so beautiful and so pretty. I don't know. I think it really is like in one of those top Euro spots for me because it's just so elegant and nice and streamlined, but at the same time it's not simple in a way that detracts from the Euro experience. I don't know, it's just one that I really enjoy.
And then the fourth one that immediately came
Great Western Trail. Oh man, Great Western Trail.
Another Euro-ish game, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Great Western Trail deals with the idea of a customizable rondelle in a way. Like it's not really a rondelle, but it feels like one because you're going through a set path every single time, right? So you're repeating the same amount of steps, but you choose where you stop. So the idea is that as you are progressing, like imagine that there's little trails that you're going through, and and the trail has small stops every so often. You get to choose where you stop. And where, like, what direction you want to take. And depending on how you build out that trail, that's why it's called Great Western Trail, you get to experience different things. For example, your opponent can come in and tax you in a particular route that he knows you're taking because you place one of your key buildings in that route, like in that separation. He just cut you right there, and every single time from now on that you go through that space,
you gotta pay the price.
You gotta pay the price every single time. And man, it's so satisfying the way that you start building out those smaller sections, and then you have an upper track that you're trying to constantly push forward because The game revolves around the idea of building this global rondel that everybody can use, because people can use your buildings, but if they use your buildings or stop in your buildings, that's when you get, like, you pass over them, you get taxed, and if you stop in them, you also, like, you have problems. Either way, you're always trying to use your things. But there's also a sort of set collection, in a way. You're trying to get better cards, which are cows. It's a joke in the game. Like, nobody, like, the game is a little bit just a tiny bit themeless. No, it is themeless. Well, no, I like it. Either way, I love the theme for it. It's weird and wacky.
You're not herding cows?
Yeah, sort of. Like, maybe. You're just collecting cards of cows with larger numbers and then cashing them in at the end.
So you're getting a herd of cows?
Sure, yeah. And you're bringing them
Sounds
along
like a
the
theme
trail.
to me.
And you're bringing them along the trail throughout all that in order to sell them to the big monopolies at the end, or whatever it is. There is theme. It's just that I've heard a lot of people complain about the cows for some reason. Either way, you're collecting those cards and then cashing them in, and the bigger cards that you collect, the stronger and bigger points you get, and the farther you get to move along this track. So it's exponential the way that you build it, and there's also another separate tableau that you also get to expand. Oh man, Great Western Trail is so good. It's really great.
So this is a perfect transition to the fact that I've established that my favorite mechanic in a game
It's flavor text.
is flavor text.
Please don't ask me what my favorite mechanic is.
What's your favorite mechanic in a game?
Oh god, why?
And why?
I would say probably deck building and worker placement is likely. Oh no. Tile laying and deck building. No, that's it. Those are my favorites. Worker placement is definitely up there, but those are my favorites. Tile laying, I love creating something. I love kind of like the patchwork of the feeling of it. You know, the concept of you're building up a map, or you're building up an animal, or you're building something. I love that concept. It's always drawn me in.
Okay.
And the intricacies between the connections of those tiles that you're placing, right? Like how key it is to place this particular tile right there, because it's going to solidify your strategy for the rest of the game. Like that type of effect is really cool, but at the same time, a lot of tile layers allow for flexibility and constantly changing strategies, because you might have placed a tile here for something in specific, but looking around the board, it's like, oh, I kind of want to pivot a little bit. And you have the opportunity to do that depending on the type of tile layer you're getting. Like Orchard Ocean, definitely not. But it's just, I love it. Every single time I hear tile laying, I'm like, what game? Excuse me? I want to know about it. Then deck building. I think I've already kind of talked about that with Millennium Blades. Deck building is just so gratifying. The idea of there's a lot of different types of deck builders. So let me be clear on what type of deck build. When I say deck building, what I mean. I mean deck building where it has a public market in which you can incorporate new cards in order to transform
Throughout the course of the game,
a deck of cards which you started with.
You're building your deck.
Yeah, because there's different types of deck building. Like what we call deck construction could technically be construed as deck building.
In terms of terminology, maybe a little bit of flex there, sure.
So I love that. The idea, like, you know it. I love adaptability. I love thinking on my feet and being challenged with like a little puzzle that I can't solve. I love puzzles. And deck building gives me that in a really abstract form. Like tile laying is literally solving a puzzle, right? Every time you sit down on the table, except it has like all these rules and all these different weird stuff that can happen. And then deck building is a much more active one, where it's like really exciting to get like that hand of cards that, oh, like I've worked so hard to make you, and like there you go, there you go, boom, I just destroyed. Look at all those points, and I really worked hard to get that engine going. It just feels really gratifying. And it's immediately gratifying too. Like the moment you bring in a card that's like really, really good, you see the effect immediately, and it keeps, like, it gives back a feedback loop that players can constantly go back to. That's what I love about it.
If you had to choose one game that everyone watching to this point
No, veto.
added to their collection,
No, veto.
to introduce to new gamers,
Veto. I don't know.
what would it be?
Oh God, I hate
First
you.
that comes to your mind.
I don't know.
What in your opinion is one of the best bridges into this space? Because I have no context for bridges, Jan. KDM was my entry point.
I don't bring people into this hobby often enough. Like, I just play with gamers. I don't, okay. Things that come into mind just because we were in the subject of tile layers. I think Barren Park is really wonderful in the way that it approaches tile laying. It's really simple, straightforward, and it tends to be a really enriching puzzle. I'm not sure if I'd actually recommend Barren Park for this, but I really like it. Another one that I can think of is Isle of Skye. Isle of Skye is another tile layer that I think is just really fun.
So tile laying is the best entry point into the board game hobby.
In my opinion, not necessarily. I think probably one of the best ways that you can bring people into board gaming is to introduce them through a party game that has board game elements. Because people tend to they tend to gravitate towards things that make them laugh and have fun immediately. Like things like Sheriff of Nottingham. Those are the Munchkin, Sheriff of Nottingham, Betrayal on the House on the Hill. Those types of games that are like bare bones basic in a lot of ways, but they bring like big highs and lows. King of Tokyo. All those games were the games that I actually convinced my friends in Puerto Rico to play with me. Would I recommend those in today's age, me being like the wise gamer I am today? I don't know if they would be it. But they're definitely the reason why I'm here now, right? Like that type of game, sort of party-ish with a little bit of strategic thinking is what I would really recommend. So I don't know. So maybe it's some of those that I just mentioned and not really the first ones because you caught me off guard and I can't think of things on the spot like that. There you go.
Everyone watching, finish a sentence, should buy
what they feel is right for them.
Barren Park.
Oh, God. It is really good. It genuinely is. And Bunny Kingdom is amazing as well.
And Kingdom Death. That being said, before I co-opt this entire conversation, I really only have one other question, and then we'll wrap this up. This will be a thing. What? I'm gonna leave this more open-ended, but I might narrow it down a little bit as we go. I've written down here, what do you want for this community?
For the hobby?
It's not what I wrote down just that.
For this community.
I wrote down, what do you want for this community? So I'm gonna let you.
Look, you made me think for the first time in the entire conversation. Good
for the first time?
I haven't stopped for a single second. I've just been answering off the oh, look at that. There you go. I want people that are involved with Quackalope in any way to never doubt that they're welcome here. I want us to be the community that is associated with friendship every time. I want us to be the type of media, like that question I asked you. I want to be the type of media personalities that bring in people to this world and that bring in people to reach out to other people. I want us to kind of unveil the sociological reasons why people enjoy board games. Because when we talk about board games, and especially with a lot of the alpha gamers and things like that, people tend to lose focus about what's really important, right? Like, people are important.
Are you not including me in the definition of alpha gamer?
No, not even close. People, community is the most important thing about this entire hobby. It's what I said. It's like the sports. You can't have sports without other human beings being there. Sure. And the sports wouldn't be the sports if the people weren't wanting to play. Mm-hmm. So, when we get comments like, you got all the rules wrong, what are you doing? It sucks. It sucks because we suck at learning games. I don't know why.
I don't know that we've had a single video.
Yeah, we just did too many bones and we probably got the entire thing wrong. We're going to have to scrap it. Just like we did with Marvel Champions. But at the same time, that's not really the point. It's never been the point. It's never been the reason why we're doing, the idea of this community is, look at the fun we're having. Look at how we're bonding. Every time we make a video, we're, kind of, bonding as friends, right? We're expanding our relationship together. And that's the type of thing that I want people to feel for. I want every single human being, I don't care, male, female, Latino, American, Asian, European, I don't care at all where you come from. I just want you to not have to ask the question to yourself, do I belong? Because yes, you do. You're right. Man, we want you here. We want you to sit at this table and joke around and have fun and feel like you're our friend because you are. That's what I always strive for and act like when we act. And when I say act like how I behave, like how I project myself when we make videos. Because I tend to be like the cheery, peppy, happy type. And I'm not necessarily like that every day in my life. I'm definitely not, but when I'm like...
What?
Whoa! But I genuinely feel like that when I'm here. I feel like that when I'm playing games with people. Like in the day-to-day, I'm much more mellow. I'm much more tranquil. But...
Depends on the game we're playing.
True, exactly. But when I'm here, man, I want you to have fun. I want you to be excited about just sitting down with another human being. Forget about the game for a quick second. And just let's get around something that's really cool. But like also acknowledge that we're all sitting down. Like we're all adults with lives and responsibilities, and we've decided to take time. Debatable, I know. And we've decided to take time to sit down and be with each other right now, thanks to this vehicle in front of us. That's what I want for this community. I want this community to feel like a community. I want this to have like that feeling of a neighborhood that everybody knows each other, and like you have a problem, hey, Fulano is gonna come in and he's gonna help you out, and then Sheila has an issue, then Alexandra's gonna come in and help her, without question. That's the type of spirit I want, and that's what I've kind of like always been like trying to strive for. Like sure, I also want this community to touch on really like to have really fascinating conversations around games, which is why I want to bring Euros and I want to bring all those things. But community, like actual community, to me is the most important thing. Which is why in the future we wanna diverge a little bit from just the board games and like in America. We want to expand those borders even more. Because I don't consider community to be here. I consider the world to be a community. I consider the world to be part of this hobby.
Anyone that plays games.
Anyone that plays
games.
Or
wants to. Or thought about it. Or
even considered it.
Or we can convince to sit down. All of you.
Because the community, the people here are amazing. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I want for the Quackalope and the paddle.
I want to get to 100,000 people.
Uh-huh.
And then I want to make a video.
Uh-huh.
That's 6 seconds long.
Uh-huh.
Where all we do is we turn on the camera and we point at it and we scream at them.
I'm not gonna do that yet.
No, I mean just legitimately like 100,000, like get 100,000 subscribers, and then we go, yeah! I'm so fucking glad you're here and you're part of this space, and God, you like just. I don't know, because I don't know how you get people. It's the hardest puzzle to solve.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most complicated thing. The most important thing, and it should be. The most important thing should be the most complicated thing. How do you build that? How do you maintain that? How do you translate to 15,000 people or 200 people or the people sitting around your table that they're the thing that's important here? Like, that's hard when it's just us.
Well, you've already kind of cracked it a little bit, and you gotta do. Well, here we go. The idea that you bring in people from all types of places all the time onto the channel, and you give them a shot to be in front of this camera. That's it. That's one of the secrets to, communicating that.
It's a part of it.
Having every single type of human being on this side of the table. That's how we get there.
Anyone we can get.
Anyone that wants to be here.
I try to convince. I have people driving hours to come spend time sitting here.
Every single person that just wants to be here gets the chance to be here, and you don't even question it. You're like, yeah, come on over. Let's do it.
Sure.
And you've always been like that. The conversation then becomes, how do we get more people, like all types of people, to come and visit?
And there's a limit to that too, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't have 15,000 people come over.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. It's the most complicated thing. The most important thing should be the most complicated thing.
Correct.
But I still think when we hit 100,000, we just make a video that says, just screams, I care about you. Like, I don't know, because I don't know what else to do. That's
celebratory.
Like that's the echo. That's like just for that one person that's watching, being like, I don't know if they really. And I'm like, no, you stop. I swear to God, if you've watched to this point, I care about you. That's been a thing.
Are we done?
How was that?
It's okay. I did better.
Not as good as yours?
No.
Well, luckily...
They should go watch mine first, actually.
Mine is coming out first.
They should wait until mine comes out. and then watch mine, and then
But if
watch
they-
this
but
one.
But if they're here, it's
So they can go on a high and then go
yes.
on a low.
The problem is it's already too late for that.
Oh, because I'm
they made it
sorry.
here.
I'm sorry.
Yours might actually be better.
Yeah, it is. No, I'm kidding. No,
Because
it was great.
I
It
was
great.
talking the whole time, so that was, you know.
It was great. You almost made me cry.
I did. I had the backup duck ready to go.
Yeah.
When I do weddings, when I shoot weddings, if the bride, because she can't cry with her makeup, like that's it's got to be an emotional day, but you can't bawl because you're gonna mess everything up, and then you're more upset at the fact that you just cried with all your makeup on. So like, if it gets there, I'll let the emotions build and build and build, take some pictures and everything like that, and then if no one's intervening, I'll just be like, hey, I'll make Mike twerk if you need him to. You just let me know. You just
I don't know who Mike is, and that was funny.
Michael Matthews.
Oh, you were referring to
Yeah.
Mike? Wow. I can't picture that.
No, but neither should anyone. But the whole point is like, you know, I had a duck ready to go just in case.
It's really interesting because I conducted that interview like in a really happy state, but you you don't have I don't do the jokes. You do the jokes, right? So I don't know. They're very different in a lot of ways. So it's really cool.
Yeah, well, they are very different. I moderate emotions a lot. I feel like through the little bits of humor and the structure of it and stuff. I try not to let someone get too far down a pathway because I'm like, wait, we're just talking. We got the ducks. You're going. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, but you were just like talk.
Well, no, I wanted to pursue things that are interesting.
Sure.
I wanted to pursue things that people might not know.
I am really curious to watch these back. That'll be interesting. Mm-hmm. It will be.
I hope you find it interesting.
They didn't.
No, yeah, that's right. Yeah. We're probably talking just to like two people or something.
So here's the real thing. So Jan's interview is coming out tomorrow, where he interviews me. Same concept, same cross interview. We actually covered vastly different things.
Yeah.
I don't even think you asked me about board games.
Well, sort of. In like in an adjacent way.
Very abstract.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in seeing, I mean, if you watch to this point, you're probably going to watch that one as well. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you like this format, feel free to, leave a comment. Let us know. I mean, I'm not opposed to. We already do the Road Trip podcast. We already do the big Q&As. So like, it would be interesting. This was a really interesting experiment. It was more interesting than I initially thought.
Oh, really?
I thought it would be cool because people don't do this, right? Like this is a weird experiment.
Friends don't interview each other in general.
and especially and people don't watch interviews where someone knows the other person, right? Like I also think that's a weird bridge. It'll be interesting to watch this back because I feel like we're getting slightly beyond where surface level would go, both because we trust the person we're talking to, which distracts from the fact that we got people that we don't know watching, but also because we know where to ask, right? Like we've heard the same stories sometimes. We know where there's a string that we can pull on a little bit. So I think that's neat. Hopefully you've enjoyed this experiment. If you made it to this point, I'm not going to do it.
You're not going to do it?
Well, I was going to do... I was going to do if you made it to this point... like
subscribe, do the things.
Well, I was going to do the normal push, specifically around Patreon. And this isn't the structure that we're supposed to do. We're just not editing this. We don't need to do it here.
Okay.
So...
like, honestly, the idea of this is for anybody that is here to learn a little bit more about us.
That's it.
And I hope that did happen.
Thank you for watching. Whatever you do,
Remember to do the important
get
thing.
out and play some games.
We'll see you guys next time.